Good afternoon. My name is Tatiana Koval, and this is podcast Happy at Work. In our podcast, we discuss very interesting topic: people-centric culture, employee happiness, employee brand management, and corporate well-being. And today we will discuss the topic which is the heart of our podcast, the topic of happiness and performance. And today our guest is a very interesting person. This is Cristiana Pinciroli. Hi, Cristiana.
Hello, Tatiana. It's a pleasure being here.
Cristiana, after our meeting, I was impressed by your biography from a business perspective, but also from your sports biography. Please, could you tell a little bit about your professional and life way?
Yes. Well, Tatiana, I was a pioneer of women's water polo in Brazil. My father is an Olympian, and when he used to play water polo, it was only a main sport. But nevertheless, he never let me out of any conversation, any storytelling. Any sport was a way to communicate our family values for both my father and my mom. This inspired me to become a pioneer in women's water polo. Then I was the captain of the women's water polo team for 13 years. I played professionally in Italy for 4 years. After my first career, I was chosen among the best players in the world. And at a certain point in my life, when I was about 26 years old, I felt the need to start a moment of transition. And for me, it was always very helpful because I never stopped studying. And when I came back to Brazil after my time in Italy, I joined a financial institution called at that time Unibanco. And the CEO saw the values from sport to the organizational settings. So I've been always passionate about high performance. I learned from high performance in sport, and I applied in my organizational career that at the bank lasts for 23 years.
Cristiana, my questions for you firstly is about happiness. I remember what we met on the webinar of my two favorite scientists of the science of happiness, Tal Ben-Shahar and Adam Grant. On my way to happiness, I shared it a lot with my audience, but what is your way to the happiness topic?
Okay. One thing that it always has struck me, I worked for this Brazilian bank. By that time, it was already Itaú Unibanco. I went to the United States. I became head of human resources. And I've always been passionate about creating the conditions to realize human potential, both individually and collectively. And at a certain point, I started to see a lot of people with burnout, not only at the organizational settings, but at my daughter's schools, at universities, with elderlies, and I experienced burnout as well. And this struck me, said, what's going on with the high performance formula? And it cannot be only about no pain, no gain, pushing us farther. And it was when I met Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar. He came to my daughter's schools to do a lecture. And it was like I could see a light at the end of a tunnel, because Tal Ben-Shahar, he was an athlete himself. He used to play squash, and he hurt it himself, and then he found positive psychology, philosophy, and he showed me something that I didn't know, the importance about the genius of the end, like Jim Collins talks about in Built to Last. So many times we focus as an athlete, as an executive, as a leader in the tyranny of the or I'll take care of my high performance, or I'll be the best employee, or I'll take care of my health, or I'll take care of my relationships. And what I found through the studies of the science of happiness is the importance of this genius of the end, We need to, yes, prepare ourselves to realize our potential, and we need to take care of our well-being. So it's this work from inside out. This is, for me, the definition by Helen Keller is the one that I admire the most. Happiness is about whole being, how we need to be wholesome and also work on our well-being.
Absolutely agree with you. And my next question, this is about a concern, about situation, and we start to talk about happiness in the business. Now I'm meeting a lot with my colleagues in Brazil, and when I start to talk what I'm working in the area of happiness, area of employee happiness, they said, this is not for business. But for me, the happiness in business, we have a strong connection. And as we discussed, that happiness, this is a way to improving your performance. Could you please share your approach? I know what you are working in the area of improving performance and use the happiness, sense of happiness for this. Could you share how happiness could be a way for the business to the higher performance?
Yes. I think when I talk with business, Tatiana, what's make a difference is that I talk from an excellence, high performance standpoint. And then I show the research about the importance of taking care of creating the conditions of talking about well-being, about the importance of role models to inspire employees to broaden their knowledge about excellence. And in the past, it was a lot related to the neck up. We needed only organizations needed to think about or provide the technical training, the leadership training, but it was very much focused on the abilities, on knowledge, and nowadays they are seen because of, I think, the pandemic that struck at all of us, and even themselves, the leaders from the organizations, they are more open now to talk about happiness. And when we say what is not happiness, happiness is not toxic positivity, that we need to be happy all the time. It's not lack of suffering. It's not lack of adversities. It's quite the opposite. It's how we prepare ourselves to deal better with challenges, at the organizational challenges, with adversities, with surprise that we cannot control, uncertainties. So they are much more open now because they are seeing the correlation about talking well-being, about storytelling, how they take care of themselves, and how this can inspire the entire organization to have this type of mindset, because it's the one that we can work on the long term.
When we start to discuss with business, the happiness, usually we need to make explanation of how to manage the happiness. If we want to improve the happiness of the employees as a first step to improving the performance, improving the culture of the organization. What is your approach? What usually are you doing with companies?
Tatiana, I always take my book. My book is called, I wrote this book with my father. It's called Sport, A Stage for Life. So it's not a book about saying the importance of sport, about physical health. This book is much more how we learn through sports experience that we can use in life in general. So I always take my book, I talk about that. And I make the analogy from sport, elite performance sport, to the organizational setting. So it becomes very clear. Usually I say, for instance, the importance of recovery. I talk about a race car, a Formula One, that the pilot who is going to win the race is not the one who is always in front, doing his best, speeding up. He's the one who needs also the best recovery team, which is the pit stop. So in life, when I use the analogy from sport, it becomes clear that we need, yes, to practice, to take care of our strengths, our skills, and we need to have moments of recovery so we can be at our best. And when I show research saying, for instance, the importance of exercise in the morning, so whoever exercise tends to eat better. So when we exercise, we eat better, we are supposed to sleep better. So when we have these three positive things combined, exercise, eating, and sleep, the next day we are much more creative, we are much more with energy to contribute to the organizational results. So these examples make it clear for them from their individual standpoint, so they start to understand the importance about advocating for this positive agenda to the organization.
Yes, absolutely agree with you, but it's we are the people of the work, and everything is starting
Exactly.
from us as a person, not from the us as a role in the organization, but as a person. And I absolutely agree with, as you said, we are the whole person, so we couldn't divide us. I want to discuss with you the SPIRE model of Tal Ben-Shahar. Could you share, please, this model and how you could use it for working the companies who want to look on themselves, as leaders want to look on themselves, or for leaders who want to look and manage their employees as a whole person?
Certainly. I think what is very powerful, Tatiana, when I start talking, that many times we think that whenever we are successful, we'll be happy. And it's quite the opposite. As much as we think about and work through our choice about a happier life, better habits, positive habits, we tend to be more successful. And then I say that happiness is like looking at the sun. It's too bright. It's almost overwhelming for our eyes. But if you get a prism and look at the sun through the colors of a rainbow, it's much easier to appreciate. So the SPIRE model is like the rainbow for the sun, which is the happiness. So we talk about happiness in 5 dimensions. The first one is the spiritual one. And I always say to the organizations, it's not about faith, even though faith is very positive. We can see results on that. But it's not what we're going to talk about. We are going to talk about the importance of focusing on individuals' strengths and the team strengths. Because when we focus on their strengths, we create upward spirals of growth. When a person works based on her strengths, she feels good. Whenever she feels good, she wants to repeat it. She wants to study about that and talk about it. And she goes in this upward spiral, this theory of knowledge, until she masters something. And then this spiritual dimension is about living in the present moment. Many times we live in the past and we feel kind of depressed because how happy I was when I was an athlete, when I had my family in Brazil. Nowadays, I live in Miami. And sometimes we just focus in the future and it gives us anxiety. So whoever hasn't seen, I suggest seeing Inside Out 2, that they talk about the anxiety. That is not something bad. It can be positive. But when anxiety becomes our boss, that's the problem. So the key is how we exercise our mind to create neural pathways, to make them more dominant, to be at the present moment. For instance, when we are talking, I'm totally focused on you. I'm not thinking about my children, what they're gonna eat at night, how we exercise this. So this is the spiritual dimension. We talk about the physical dimension. That's what we shared before about the genius of the ant to get into the high-performing stage like the great athletes. We saw Carlos Alcaraz playing recently against Djokovic. We could see how he was very intense, very strong, but he needs also the moments of recovery. And how do we recover? We recover through meditation, through being with people we love, through savoring a good book, music, walking in nature. These are things that we need to incorporate more in our lives. Then the third dimension is about the intellectual one, how we need to go deep into the things. And for this, we need to experiment with new things and reflect on the learning process. The fourth dimension is about relations. Our relations are the biggest contributor to happiness. So how we choose the people we are with. Some people we don't choose, but we have the power to, when we share in our work, who is going to be those person that we want to listen to their opinions, to collaborate with us. We can choose all of this. And the last dimension, not less important, is the emotional one. And the importance, this was something that I didn't know, I didn't realize before. I learned it when I started studying the science of happiness, is about the permission to be human. I've always been a perfectionist, and this hurted me a lot because there is no such things as perfection. But I pushed always myself to be better, better, better. And this can be very tiring and can be overwhelming and can lead to burnout. So these are the SPIRE models that we work with the organizational language, with the analogy from sport to the organizations.
Very, very interesting. And about perfectionism, I like Tal Shahar, because he let us don't be perfectionists. He has a very, very interesting book. If you are a perfectionist, it could damage your happiness. What is I understand what being a sport, especially in the high sports, you have to be a perfectionist. You should be in this model. And also to be in the top of the biggest corporation, you also want to be a perfectionist. What is the way for the people who want to do their job great? And in our side, they want to be happy. What is the way? What could you recommend from your huge experience in these two biggest areas, sport and business?
Very good. Tatiana, recently I had a discussion with a doctor at organizations, and he said, competition is the worst thing. I said, no, competition is positive, is important, is necessary, because make us better. We have examples of people who are performing better than us. We can admire these qualities and work towards developing, towards improving ourselves. This is the approach that is very important, all of us to have. It doesn't matter if we are a mother, if we are an entrepreneur, a leader, a coach. It's important that we know the competition and always to have these curious eyes. What I need to do to improve? Okay, I lost my temper. Why did it happen? How can I improve last time? Anger. Sometimes anger is necessary because it sets boundaries. But we also need to have, again, the genius of the end. We also need to take care of our well-being when we talk about high performance. We need to take care of our exercise. Nowadays, when I go to organizations, I'm always asking them, the leaders, do you exercise? And we can see those who are starting to get very nervous, lack of patience, are those who they say, I don't have time to exercise. And it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of priorities. So we must take care. We have a lot of people sedentary nowadays. We have an average of 10 hours per day in front of screens. So we need to create those priorities in our lives to exercise, take care to what we eat. When I worked at the bank in the United States, many people worked on their desk during lunchtime. They didn't even notice what they were eating. They asked sandwich, cheeseburger, hamburger. That's the worst thing. Then you start to become obese, you don't exercise, and you have a false expectation you're gonna live sooner because you ate in your desk. But we need to create these moments we call islands of sanities that allow ourselves to recover. So when we need, we can get into high performance in a better way. And also we know how to deal better with adversities, because adversities will always happen. This we cannot avoid, but how we are going to respond to them.
It's very interesting about dinner and lunchtime in the business. I remember when they moved to Brazil, I read information that in Brazil, the dinner time, lunchtime is very, very important. And it is a time for relationship, not only for recovery, not only for eating something, but it's time for relationship. And I think what if we could use this time for about these three things, they become happy at work. And if we make it a ritual for the business, for the leaders, for the teams, I think we can learn, for example, Brazilian traditions and bring it to in our countries, especially, for example, lunchtime, especially when we discuss relationship. I think it could help us. And my next question is about relationship and about team. Because a water polo, this is a team game. What is your point of view on the topic? How we could improve happiness of the team as a leader? How we could help our subordinates to become happier, or maybe our colleagues, if we are not a leader, but maybe we are really interested in this topic and want to help people with whom I'm working in the company become happier. Because for me, a business also a team game. Yes. How we could use the lessons from the sport in the business, and how we could make us happier, and how the happiest team could bring the better results to the organization.
Very good, Tatiana. I love these questions because you are taking me to my sport career and then back to organizations. So let me share a story. When I became the captain of the Brazilian national team, I started noticing the same conditions would create different reactions on the players. For instance, when we used to go to the international championships and we would do the warm-up, then all the players would go out of the swimming pool, put at our rope with our Brazilian flag, and then we would stay in front of the audience and the Brazilian item would play. This was something that was so passionate for me, Tatiana, so this was something very passionate to me. Until nowadays, I can feel this emotion when I listen to the national anthem. But then this worked for me this way. I got it more energetic, more engaged for the game. But I started seeing some players, team players, that they got very emotional in the negative way. They would started playing, they would be without focus. They would need at least 5 minutes to get back into the game, into the flow. And this was too long. We would always start losing very badly at the beginning of the match. And I was gonna ask, what's going on? How can we do better that? So it's the first time that I saw the same condition would create different reactions. So when we started to talk about that, to bring to our meetings, to share, to listen to the voice of everyone, we started to understand each other and support each other. Because at first it was like embarrassing for us to share our weakness. And I don't like to talk about weakness, our potential limiters. So what I learned there, all of us, we have our strengths, but it's important for the leader to be ready to listen and to observe what's going on, how we can create better conditions to realize the human potential, even from the team. Because we cannot have one individual around individual. That's too hard to have. But we can have a round team, everyone participating in their strengths. So for this, we need to have a common goal. That goal that I cannot reach by myself, you cannot reach. But if we work together, like sharing what is the science of happiness, we need both of us and many other scholars. Then we can reach our goal to create a better world. So the same thing applies at teams, in sports, at the organizational settings. We need to share the common goal. We need to engage with that. And then we need to create the conditions for each individual to see how to put their strengths into play. And whenever they have potential limiters, they need to have a psychological safety environment so they can share and we can work together so this doesn't hold them back. So we can have a round team.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. Cristian, my next question is about to be in the moment, in the current moment. I have a girlfriend. He started with on the course of Tal Ben Shahar offline, and he met once a time at Tal Ben Shahar, and he shared her thoughts about it. He said, "It's unbelievable. When he talked with me, I feel myself what he is with me. He was with me in this moment, not with other people, but here in this moment." And as you mentioned, it's really absolutely important to be in the moment. As the know positive psychology, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and the flow conception, it's about when you are in the moment, you are on the peak of your performance. Could you share your approach? How could you help leaders and teams to be more focused on the current moment for improving their performance? And not only improving their performance, but also, I think, to have a pleasure from this performance, because the conceptual flow also it's about be happy from what you are doing, not only from the results, but also from the process of doing something. Could you share, please, your experience about how you help company and leaders to be focused on the current moment?
Yes, Tatiana, and it's good that you brought Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. I'm sure you pronounce much better than I do. And the way he defined flow, how you said, is a meditation in action, is when we are able to combine our passion strengths, our performing strengths with the size of the goal. So if the goal is too high for us, we feel overwhelmed. But if the goal is too easy, we become bored. So when we meet our strengths with the right size of the challenge, is when we have a chance to reach our peak performance. So when we talk about strengths, I usually say, many people ask, how do we find our strengths? Usually it's that thing that you are very passionate when you are doing, you feel good. For instance, doing this podcast, we can see your face, you smile, you have this yellow color. You are almost in a flow when you do your podcasts. Also, your performing strengths, those things that you do well naturally. So these are necessary, and always the practice. It doesn't matter. These are tips of your talents. Then you need to practice. But then when you find the right side of the challenge, in the organizational challenge or with your families in education, that's when you feel that you can put into practice your strengths, is how we reach our flow state. Nowadays, Tatiana, after I left the bank after a 23 years career, I founded my own company. It's called We Team, which leverage in the power of collaboration. It's like Ellen Berscheid, she's a social psychologist. She says, the human greatest strength is another human. So I am in a flow when I'm studying about this, about teams, about the science of happiness, about high performance. So that's how I talk about in organizations, about leaders, how we need to be open to listen to our employees and help them to realize their strengths in what they are doing, aligned with the goals of the organization.
If our leaders who will listen us be ready to implement the happiness approach in their teams, in their corporations, we could meet some obstacles on this way. We could meet some problems, unexpected problems, maybe. What is the main problems you meet on this way to implement the ideas of happiness in the corporate, in the corporation? Could you share, please? And maybe you could share the ideas how to overcome these barriers.
So, Tatiana, I'm going to use the ABC model of psychology to answer this. Many training programs, they focus on the cognitive aspect. So when I talk with organizations, when we start a happiness program, we need to bring the cognitive aspect on. We need to share the storytelling. We need to share the scientific-based research for everything we're talking about. This is very important. The second aspect is the emotion. We need to touch their heart. So that's why storytelling is so important. That's why we need to work on vulnerability, the leaders sharing also their stories and how they were able to grow out of adversities. The third aspect, which is very important and many organizations lack, is the behavior. So they focus on the cognitive aspect, the emotional one, but they don't go into action. It's missing the walk the talk after everything that we worked during the training program. So what type of actions they are going to reinforce, to motivate in the organizations? For instance, accountability buddies. The importance, they create accountability buddies so they support each other in putting in practice these things that we talk about, the importance of listening, creating psychological safety environments, work on their strengths. So it's very important to have someone you can share and you can learn from other people. It's the importance to create moments of people sharing, of doing journaling. Journaling is something very important. Talking about the gratitude practice. Why gratitude practice is one of the most powerful tools when we talk about happiness is because we work in our neural pathways. When we appreciate something that is working well at organization, in a team, we started seeing how things can improve and we become more optimistic. And when we see optimism, people are better in delivering results because there will always be those people that they only focus on the negative aspect. And it doesn't matter, they will be in a perfect beach during vacation and they will find something negative. So through gratitude practice, we can create this positive because what we believe it's very important because it creates self-fulfilling prophecies. So these are the things that leaders should focus on, the action as well.
Cristiana, my last questions, because they have a time limited from the perspective of podcast. My last questions for you is a traditional. What is the 3 advice could you give to the people who will look to this podcast, this episode, What is the free advice could you give to the leaders or to a person who is working in business? How to become happy at work and how to use happiness for improving their performance? 3 main steps.
Perfect. 3 main advice. First one, remember the permission to be human. There will be moments, ups and downs in life. So there will be very hard moments. Then when you need support, you need to rest. Listen to your emotions because they are like compasses. They are showing you what type of actions you can take. Second advice, remember about the genius of the end. Take care of yourself, of your well-being, so you can reach high performance whenever you desire. The third aspect, remember that everything starts with ourselves. It's like the oxygen mask in the airplane. First put on yourself, then to the ones you love. So there are always research, a lot of positive things out there talking about the science of happiness, about high performance. And then there is the research. Start using on yourself, because the first step to every change is the self-awareness. Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Cristiana. I could end the 4th advice to read your books. Could you please show your books again? I think it also could be very good advice to read the books of Cristiana to everybody who wants to improve their performance and do it in the way of happiness. Thanks, Cristiana, for your time, for visiting our podcast, for this absolutely insightful and very interesting and deep dialogue. Hope to see you again.
Tatiana, thank you very much. You are doing an amazing work, bringing all these people to your podcast and sharing this knowledge with us. Thank you. Wishing you all the best and to everyone who listens to us. Thank you.
This is podcast Happy at Work.